basically reduce the cardinality on it. So you can do summarizations, aggregations, computations on sliding time windows, etc. So at a high level, there's two concepts in Pipeline DB that you should know about, streams and continuous views. And so when the data flows in, it goes through a stream and goes into a continuous view. And users basically query on the continuous view, but not on the stream. And so if you're dealing with sliding time windows, for example, the continuous view is what actually gets incrementally updated in real time. And so basically continuous views read from the stream, and whatever record that goes from the stream to the continuous view is discarded soon after that record is read. Oh, is the audio better?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Go for it. Thank you.
Yes. So this is an example of like how you create continuous views in Pipeline DB. So the first one, it says create continuous view average of forever as select average blah 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 from 1 trillion event stream. So this is the stream and this is the continuous views. So as the comment says, although the stream itself could contain trillions of events, whatever actually gets persisted is actually just in the continuous views. So in this case, although there would be trillion events in the stream, Pipeline DB would just only store a single row in its persistence layer, which is just a few bytes. And you can basically calculate the average of whatever that you're trying to calculate. Another example on the bottom is basically calculating how many ad impressions, whatever you served in the last 5 minutes. So clock timestamp is a built-in function of Postgre, which gives you the clock timestamp of whatever right now, and you're basically subtracting 5 minutes from it. So you're going back in history like 5 minutes, right? And arrival timestamp is a built-in for Pipeline DB, and it basically every single event that comes in through Pipeline DB is given the arrival timestamp. So basically, whatever this predicate over here is basically specifying a 5-minute sliding time window, and you're basically looking at the count for that impression stream. Does this make sense? So when we want to detect unhealthy domains in Smart News case, when we crawl, we basically have a stream defined as above. It's basically a timestamp of when we actually access the URL itself, the domain, and the HTTP status code. And that's the stream, right? And so we create a continuous view called minutely unhealthy domains, where this is the predicate. So we're looking at the past 24 hours. This is the predicate over here. And we're basically looking at status codes and storing the minute, the domain, and the sum of like 200s, 300s, and so on. So this defines like basically a continuous view over the past 24 hours worth of crawling behavior. And so basically, after this, it's really simple. You basically run a select statement. And so this is basically saying, although we have 24 hours worth of data stored in Pipeline DB, we're just interested in 30 minutes of data. And for each domain, we basically sum up all of the like 200s, 300s, and 400s and their count. If this predicate over here is saying that we've accessed it a fairly good amount of time. It's a negligible site. And so if what we're doing at Smart News, right now we just started rolling this out. And so right now we basically run this query like once every 5 minutes or so. And we basically send notifications to Slack if there are certain websites or domains that we can't access. So over here it says this article from Entrepreneur had about 33 4xx HTTP status codes and so on. And so that's pretty much it, how Smart News is using Pipeline DB right now. But of course, it's like you can use it in other use cases, including real-time A/B test performance monitoring and continuous KPI monitoring. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, thanks for listening. Do you have any questions?
So if you streamline a site that gives you back a 404, for example,
Uh-huh.
it stays in the database marked as bad for 24 hours? Or, so basically, is there a TTL for when the query runs again on all of the sites that you categorize as 404 to see if they're back up again?
Yeah, so we basically have like a cron job that's basically running this query every 5 minutes. And so because this is basically running, this query is running over a sliding window, like every 5 minutes that it runs, the results will be different.
Okay, so my question is, otherwise, do you have a specific cron job for all the sites that gave you a 404 that would run at a different time interval to test to see if they're still back up or yes or no?
Ah, okay, I see. Right now we don't have that. Yeah, but we're planning. We're probably going to do that. Yes, the gentleman in front.
Sure.
Yeah.
How much data is actually stored in the database persistently? Or is it all just streaming and if you don't read anything, that everything is discarded?
Ah, right, yeah, so that's the beauty of pipeline DB. So like, basically if we go back here, this stream, whenever an event goes through the stream to the continuous view, it's basically, whatever in the stream is basically discarded. And so what's persisted is actually the continuous view itself. And so you can imagine what's stored in the continuous view is actually when you do a select star from continuous view. So that's what's going to be stored, persisted in pipeline DB. So even though, yeah.
No, but if I define a continuous view as a sliding window, then it should be always different, right? So
right.
what is actually then persistent?
What was the last
What
one?
is persistent if this continuous view is not accumulating, but just always a sliding window? Nothing is persistent, right? And it's just
well, it's being incrementally updated.
right.
Yeah.
But all its values previously are
yeah, they're dynamically changing. But it's I guess it depends on what you define persistence is. But it's the continuous view is incrementally being updated. Yeah. Yes.
Can you give a number or an estimate about the number of events you guys are receiving?
We just started exploring this, so I think the number of events that flows through here probably in the orders of thousands per minute or something like that. But it's so far it's scaling fine. Yes.
Do you, so if you have several continuous views and they're very similar, one might be a proper subset of another, do you do any kind of optimization for where you know, to recognize that that's the case, and or are they all distinct and separate and that you don't try to interpret the...
Yeah, they're all distinct and separate, and basically pipeline DB tries to handle it for you transparently. So.
Okay, so yeah, I guess I was asking about pipeline DB.
Yeah.
You know that they're doing that. They actually, yeah, I understand that it's,
Oh, okay.
well, the abstraction is that they're separate, but
Yeah.
implementation-wise,
I don't know. That's a good question.
Can you repeat the question?
The question was that if you have like several continuous views, that one might be the proper subset of another, does pipeline DB recognize those sorts of situations?
Maybe. Yeah, it's a relatively new product, so I don't know if it does those optimizations, but probably like down the year. If it hasn't done so already, I'm guessing that it's going to do it sometime soon. Yes.
Could you be a little more specific about how you set up a stream? I mean, what kinds of data is it expecting? When can you set it to? How are you pushing stuff to it?
So yeah, so what kind of data that you can store it is basically it's anything that you can store in Postgre. So like JSON, Postgre SQL.
Okay.
And how we basically stream the data, it's basically there's recently a bunch of log shipping app services, not services, but software like Logstash or Fluentd, those kind of stuff. So in our case, we basically use Fluentd to stream application logs into pipeline DB.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just wondering what's the advantage of stream this architecture of using Storm or Spark streaming?
I think so. What the developers of PipelineDB says is that you could, in theory, like roll out your own sliding time window calculations and those kind of things on top of Storm, but it tends to be unwieldy, and like if you just use PipelineDB, you can just get it out of the box, and you can just run a simple SQL query and get the same result. Yes.
A question about your crawl rather than PipelineDB.
Yeah.
I imagine that you get a lot of duplicates with slightly different URLs, but really the same content. How many of those do you see, and how do you deal with them in this kind of fashion, or is that some kind of post-processing?
So there's some. So we try to, as you mentioned, we try to remove duplicate articles if they show up. If it's duplicate news events, it's not a good UI or UX. So that comes at a later step. We're actually analyzing the articles themselves.
We actually have some slides from a previous talk where Naoki talked a little bit about how do we classify articles and how do we remove duplicates and stuff. But it's an interesting problem, right, in the news. A lot of people will take an article, like a journalist, and they'll actually plagiarize another journalist's work and like copy and paste quotes and stuff, but it's essentially the same article. So we have to, our system has to understand that those articles are actually very, very similar, and we purposely try to find articles that are very different. Let's say when there's a conservative take and a liberal take on the same news item, and they're written in completely different opinions, that's what we would try to show side by side, as opposed to two of the same news items.
I guess there's another side of the question. From the same site, you can get to exactly the same page by various URLs,
Yeah.
you know, with different get arguments and things like that. Do you have any strategy for dealing with that, or do you just collect everything and sort it out later?
Yeah, we just collect everything and sort it out later. Okay. Thanks.
Makes sense?